Happy not Halloween. To the astute observer, you will realize that this is definitely not a Halloween video like I originally intended it to. My wife and I laid down in bed on the night this came out on Paramount Plus to watch Paranormal Activity Next of Kin so that I could quickly record this video, edit it, and have it up as a Halloween upload. But as you realize, it is quite a bit after Halloween, more than a week after Halloween to be exact. And the video's just going up now. Why? Because this movie is boring. We got 15 minutes into the original watch of it, paused it, and we're like, are you fucking kidding me? Is it 30 seconds into the video? Can I say fuck yet? Yeah. It's 30 seconds in. I can say fuck. So we got 15 minutes into this video, paused it, and we're like, are you fucking kidding me? We thought we were like half an hour, 40 minutes into this thing. But from the very beginning, this thing is boring and nonsensical, doesn't go anywhere, you don't care, and just plain awful. I contemplated for a week trying to watch this thing, watching it 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there, until my mind just fucking shut down and forced me to do something else, anything. The push-ups doesn't fucking matter. But finally I was like, Bailey, you make videos, and people like when you don't like things. People like when people on the internet don't like things. So it is your responsibility to watch this dog shit movie. So I did, and here we are. Let's get into this, I guess. So Paranormal Activity Next of Kin is the revival of the beloved Paranormal Activity series. The first Paranormal Activity I relate kind of to Blair Witch. It was made on almost nothing of a budget. It was original and intriguing, and people like me that aren't even horror fans liked it, and it was terrifying.
Oh, I'm so scared.
And then they made 2 and 3 and 4, and I think this is 5. I don't care enough to look it up, if I'm being 100% honest. But that's not unusual when it comes to horror. There's Saw 39, Final Destination 22, fucking Halloween 58. It's normal. Horror movies go on longer than they should, and the plots don't really matter, and how they tie in makes no sense. That's just horror.
The show where everything's made up and the points don't matter.
But it's been a while. It's been years since our last Paranormal Activity, and I thought maybe they'll revive this in a nice way. No, they did not. This is the worst by far, and that's saying something, because although I don't remember the previous movies all that well, I remember how I felt about them, and they weren't great, but I didn't end the movie going, wow, I rather would have taken a nap.
I'm taking a nap!
You want to take a nap?
I'm taking a nap here.
Okay, take a nap right there then. Good night.
Good night.
So Paranormal Activity Next of Kin follows main character girl whose name I don't know. It's a name, and her 2 sidekick buddies, this guy and not TJ Miller. From the start of the movie, you know very little, but what you do know is that she's meeting up with like an old relative of hers from an Amish community because she was adopted and trying to find out where she comes from, and she has traced her lineage back to an Amish community. So she meets up with this Amish fellow from the community to go and meet her lost family members and learn about who her mother was before she left the community, which, as far as horror movies go, it's a decent way to explain why nobody just drives away or calls the police or goes on the internet, because it's an Amish community. They don't have those devices. It's not possible. And it's the middle of nowhere, so they can't exactly just run to the next house. So I do appreciate that, because that's a big fault when it comes to horror movies, is that you're just like, just lock the door and call 911. And that's not really an option here. So I appreciate that level of it.
Do you want to play a game?
Oh, no, thanks.
At first, the Amish community won't let her in. She can't stay in the house. They don't like outsiders. But then the youngest son of the family follows them, and we get our first jump scare when he hops up in the window and goes, boo, and scares them. So because they bring him back, they allow him into the community. I only bring this up because that jump scare did nothing to me. Just like every single jump scare in this entire movie, and the only scares this movie tries to give you is jump scares. Now, I'm not big into horror movies. You can ask anybody, especially my wife. I'm a big old pussy pants when it comes to horror movies. But I was bored with this. Nothing scared me because it's the most predictable jump scares ever. Every single time, I shit you not. If I can find footage, I'll show you a few of them. But every single time, the music is swelling up and the camera's moving around, very slowly at first, and then the music goes down until it's silent, and then boom, the camera moves and it goes wow, wow.
Okay.
And it's expected to scare us. And it never does, because I could count down from 10 and tell you, hey, in 10 seconds, a jump scare is going to happen. This is what they do every time. And that's common in horror movies nowadays from what I've seen. Again, I haven't watched a lot of horror movies, if you could count this a horror movie. After they get to the Amish community, though, obviously things start to unravel. Weird things start to happen. She starts noticing that people are walking to the woods in the middle of the night with glowy red lights. She notices that people are hiding things from her. She finds a note from her mother where she finds out that her mother was shunned from the community for getting pregnant by an Englishman who to Amish is basically just an outsider. And then she starts to get more and more curious about what's going on, and they trace everybody walking to a church in the middle of nowhere about a mile away from their home. They notice that their goats are giving birth to these two-headed goats and they're sacrificing them. And I'm just going past all of this because this is about an hour of the movie, and it's all incredibly slow and monotonous, and it's tiny little conversations with the family, and nothing scary happens whatsoever. And the only hint you really get is that maybe her mother's alive, and maybe they tried to lure her here, which is exactly what they did.
But the thing is she's not gonna say no. She would never say no because of the implication.
But I tell you all this extremely quickly because for that first hour of the movie, not a damn fucking thing happens. I was struggling to not hop on Twitter and Instagram just to see if anything more interesting in the world is happening besides what was happening on the 60 inches in front of me. That was a flex, by the way, on the size of my TV. And then at about an hour into the movie, when something actually happens, is they break into this church and find a 100-foot deep hole, and they go down there and it stinks of death, and they find that's where they're dropping the goats down there. They're going to leave in the morning because they're getting scared, and then she gets possessed in the middle of the night or something. It's not entirely clear what happens to her because her friends can't wake up. Maybe they've been drugged. And then she wakes up in the morning and she's had what the doctor there describes as an extremely heavy flow period. So she can't leave the house. And they're like, ooh, bummer. Okay. The whole reason they don't leave beforehand is because their van is out of juice. So they walk to town and hitch a ride at the mail carrier to go get a battery. And they tell the mail carrier whoever they're staying, the mail carrier is like, look, I've been on this job for 40 years. And I can tell you, that family ain't Amish.
I know every Amish family within a 50-mile area. They ain't Amish.
And that line alone, I really appreciate. Granted, it came about an hour and 10 minutes into the movie. So I imagine about 90% of people watching this movie bowed out before then. But until that line, all I could think was, I've met lots of Amish families. I live in an area where there's an Amish community, and they're the most wholesome, nice people you will ever meet in your life. And this movie, painted them in such an awful, evil light. Not even about the demons, just like who they are as people. And I just thought, this is inherently problematic.
I'm problematic. It's a problem.
So that one line about an hour and 15 minutes into the movie where the mailman says they're not actually Amish, they just pretend to be Amish, at least that lets them off the hook for just dog shitting Amish people for an hour and 15 minutes. So good on them for that. But we find out that the mom of her never really left the community. She's like possessed with a demon or something, and they need to give her body to the mother demon because the only way that the demon won't take over the world is by taking over a younger body. I'm going to be 100% honest. I didn't quite follow it, and it's not because it was complicated. It was just because my eyes were starting to sag. And that's when all hell breaks loose, when they come back and they go down into the pit, and she's down there, and an old blind lady's trying to do a ceremony, and then you see the monster come to life right there. And that's one of the carnal sins that I think this movie does, is what they do with the demon monster lady. Rule 1 of monsters is the less you show, the better. And what you might be saying is, well, Bailey, they didn't show the monster until an hour and 15 minutes into the movie. And you're right. But the thing about monster flicks is you have to know what the monster is. Get tiny little glimpses of it. Be aware of its existence and its proximity to you, but not see it. the absence of seeing it is what makes it scary, but you also have to know about it. Until we saw her, we did not know if it was a monster, a ghost, a demon, just an evil village all in their head. You didn't know. But from the moment you see the monster, she's right there on the screen. You see her in all her glory. All is bared to the world for you to be like, oh, there she is. That's the monster. Okay. All right. And then you just keep seeing her until she dies. She's not scary in any capacity because of that. There's no mystery left, you know?
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
Now, right now, we're about an hour and 15 minutes in this hour-and-a-half long movie. And what I will say is these last 15 minutes are actually rather good. The cinematography and the scoring is fucking gorgeous and breathtaking. And it's really cool to watch and allow yourself to get into it. And one thing I appreciate, but also that drives me crazy about this, is because it's a found footage movie. But found footage movies always struggle with the visuals because it's still always done with like small little cameras or phones, or in the first Paranormal Activity, a lot of home security cameras. It never really is all that much to look at. So in this, the excuse is that she hired a documentary crew, a boom mic guy, which is wannabe TJ Miller, and then the other guy that I don't know his name either. So you have a lot of really beautiful shots that they get away with by saying, oh, it's a professional documentarian that's doing this. But the problem with that is if you want me to believe this is found footage, there are countless shots that bug the hell out of me that they would cut from different angles all in a conversation. But when you'd go to the opposite angle, you'd see that nobody was standing where that last camera was. And it's been said multiple times, it's just this one camera guy. So there's normal filmmaking and camera movement of a regular movie where they do multiple shots with multiple different angles, but only the one guy. So it just kind of takes you out of it, because you go from a sky shot to a shot of them walking towards and then a shot from them behind, but nobody's in front of them and nobody's behind them. It's stupid. It's a tiny little thing, but it takes me out of the movie. But it does benefit in these last 15 minutes where it's just fucking beautiful. And there's about a 40-second scene where the main character lady actually has some stellar acting. And I'm like, oh, maybe this isn't her fault. Maybe it's just everybody that is feeding her lines' fault. But whatever. But in the very end of the movie, after they unceremoniously and not in a scary way whatsoever kill the demon lady, she falls down a chute into some fucking, like a combine or whatever. I don't know. They escape in the van, and everybody, the whole fucking farm's on fire, and people are like gouging out their eyes and killing people with axes for some unknown reason. I guess since the demon's out, she's taking over everything. They said it would happen, and lo and behold, it did. It just wasn't in their head, I guess. But then a police officer shows up, and the main guy that had lured her there is like crying like a baby, and then he stands up and he goes, and the police officer shoots himself in the head, and he drives away in the police car. And then the credits roll while he's driving away in the police car listening to some music, and the movie's over.
That's all I have to say about that.
And what can I say about this movie? Besides, it's just a slog fest. It's boring. It's uncreative. You don't care about the characters whatsoever. I don't even remember their names. It took me about 4 times of sitting down to watch this. There's countless continuity errors. I don't know. It's easy to rag on a movie like Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom that obviously has lots of inherent problems with it that you can point out. It's hard to rag on a movie that's just boring. Like, I shouldn't fall asleep during a horror movie. That's the last movie I should fall asleep to. But whatever. I'm just here to feed my ego. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't watch this, but watch more of me. So make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Check out my other videos.